out, but I can hear you pretty well.
Let me move and make sure my mic is up close.
Okay.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah,
let me know if I start to fade and I will stop moving or something.
Yeah, so, let's just start off. Can you just tell us a little bit about what you did, what Hisan mentioned about working in, what was it? Something something, I don't remember, what was it?
Sure. I used to work, I've spent right now I'm an independent consultant, and I do evaluation of development programs related to environment or HIV/AIDS or children's health and so forth. But I started my career working in public policy related to women's health issues in Japan, and then moved back to the U.S. and I was a lobbyist, an environmental lobbyist, and then went to work for Planned Parenthood, which I think is probably the part you're most interested in, for their international program.
Mm-hmm.
And that was advocating for U.S. family planning funding, not related to abortion, but of course because Planned Parenthood, as part of the organization's mission, is to achieve a broad spectrum of reproductive rights for women.
Okay.
So I think, as I mentioned in my email, I have a lot of international perspectives, some domestic background just by nature of working with, the largest U.S. reproductive health provider. But my emphasis tends to be on other countries as well.
Okay, cool. So
and I'd love to hear how your project is going so far.
Honestly, you're the only resource that we've been able to schedule an appointment with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah.
I'm glad to. Hisan's a dear friend, but I'm glad to help regardless of personal ties. So.
Thank you.
I guess our first question would be, concerning the Roe versus Wade case, do you personally think it was actually a turning point in history?
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt, yes. I think it was a turning point for women in this country, and I think just in terms of shifting from having to obtain, what they call back alley abortions and illegal unsafe services, because abortion didn't, suddenly start with Roe versus Wade. It was happening, but we don't know how pervasive it was, but we do know that it was, that it's been common in culture for a long time. So I think there was both an impact, it was a game changer in the United States for women, and it also has had a ripple effect to other countries. So the United States certainly wasn't first and the most progressive.
Okay. How much of an effect did that have on your duties for Planned Parenthood, or just Planned Parenthood in general?
Well, I'll say Planned Parenthood in general because I'm not that old. I was really, really young when Roe versus Wade was passed. So, but I think it was. I think there was the change with Roe versus Wade, which allowed a broader spectrum of women's health services to be provided legally. I think the important thing to remember is that it was a turning point, but those same rights are continuing to be questioned, and so it's a battle fought over and over and over again. And so I was at Planned Parenthood for 10 years, and we were constantly fighting the same legislative battles, so not just related to access to abortion services, but access to basic contraceptive services as well. And it's the same stuff that is happening now as you read the news has been happening since the 70s.
Do you have another question?
That you wrote down. Not that I've done.
So I have my
Sorry.
I'll open up Facebook. So, can you think of
Like, what do you think about, so you know how laws were passed due to Roe versus Wade? What are your personal thoughts about how, like, in the presidential election, their main focusing points would be repealing Roe versus Wade, like, other things like that? Like, what do you think about that?
You know, with the political debates, especially with this presidential election, it was so polarized, and both sides were really trying to appeal to their bases. So I don't feel like that was so much of a genuine debate. It was more sort of what sound bites of what, Mitt Romney was focused on the things that were going to, mobilize people that he wanted to support him. President Obama was, frankly doing the same thing. But I think the real, if you're sort of looking at political interplay, I would look at what happened in Congress after the 2010 election in Congress, because that's when these very, you had a Republican majority in the House with some very, very, very conservative, the Tea Party, those groups who were very opposed to government funding of any sort of, social welfare systems, and certainly funding for even, basic family planning, contraception, as well as abortion was, a big platform for them. So that's when you saw really restrictive policies being proposed and forwarded, and invasive riders. So there's one dialogue, which is sort of this high level, repeal Roe versus Wade or keep it. Mm-hmm. And then what I discovered when I started to work at Planned Parenthood, there's all this crazy procedural stuff that goes on at the margins that is based on the idea that if we just make it really, really, really hard for women to access contraceptives, and if we make it really, really hard for women to access abortion services, then it'll be a barrier. So things like, waiting periods of having to, consult. Well, if you're in North Dakota and you have to travel